I would like to mention something about the finances.
We alluded to this earlier, but let's look at the finances. This is another area that has been of huge concern, not just to you, but to others. But tell us and maybe even show us what you see are the concerns at this point. We've looked at the drastic drop in attendance, which means logically finances are crashing, which is a huge deal because the property estimate, what is the value of the property the church sits on? Do you remember the numbers of that?
Figures of like 150 million have been floated around.
Okay, so somewhere around 150 million. Yeah, so that's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, so just and that's beyond numbers that I can figure in my head. But what I'm thinking is just the amount of money it takes to maintain that, the utilities, all the other things, that's got to continue. So you've had this drastic drop in attendance. So talk to us about what's happened with the finances. Have they crashed also?
No, not officially. Not officially. So if you could bring up, or as we have this graph here, I highlighted specifically two numbers from the high point in 2014. Again, this is in May, to the 2021. And this is from an official church document that was given at the congregational meeting. So this isn't anything secret. And you could see that at least as far as those two specific numbers, there's actually a slight increase. Now, one could say it's probably really, if we average year to year, there probably has been a slight decrease, but it's not commensurate. It is not proportional to the brick and mortar drops for sure, and not proportional even to their own reported numbers, going from 13,500 down to 7,500. I'm giving the numbers of the congregation off the top of my head. It's roughly in that ballpark.
Okay.
And so let's say it's approximately the same. How is that justified? And so there has been, even before this anomaly came up, there has been calls for more transparency, better financial accounting. We want to know more of the characteristics. How can they make this work? I mean, just using ballpark figures, let's say we lost half the congregation. To be able to sustain the revenue inflows, the remaining 50% have to be basically giving double what they have. What's motivating them? I mean, if you have a dying congregation, in terms of numbers, it's hard to justify that the remaining suddenly got enthusiastic and wanted to donate more.
Yeah, only non-givers left.
Yes.
I mean, that would be the only other option. Only non-givers left. All the givers stayed, but that's pretty much unheard of.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the non-givers departed, and the members, the givers, stayed, and then also doubled what they were giving to make up.
Yeah,
that's hard to justify. And
well,
so,
yeah, because most likely those who are wanting to be faithful to scripture, et cetera, when all the social justice stuff came up and started being pushed and all of that, but it's likely those who are probably givers and or tithers or more, they left, at that point. So yeah, this doesn't make any sense at all. So where are we with that? I mean, what have you been able to find out anything?
We have gotten some good suspicions, and I'm not at liberty to talk about some of the intelligence that has slipped through. I will say that conversations with former elders that were even relatively recently part of the elder board have said that this has concerned them too. But bear in mind, we have 6 elders who are unpaid and obviously part-time, shepherding a congregation of 15,000 roughly.
Wow.
At some point. Many of them are successful businessmen,
right,
and family men. They don't have time to exercise a lot of oversight for something this large. There are any number of so many immediate pressing problems that will distract them that it's like, well, maybe someone else will take care of the scrutiny of the finances. So even though they noticed it, I know that they're overworked and may have just left it and said, well, this bothers me, but there's so many other things that bother me too. that need to be dealt with, but they have expressed concern. So that's the first thing. It's not like the leadership hadn't noticed. And I'm just like, well, this is disturbing. I said, if the elder board doesn't get answers to this, I mean, that's how opaque everything is. When we talk about transparency, even retired elders have said they didn't know. I talked to one elder that said, yeah, he was more on the spending side. He was signing he was signing the checks for the payments or whatever, but he wasn't on the revenue side. But that did concern him. So we at least know that, my public sentiment is echoed by the insiders. So how few people know what the real story is. So it could be a combination. The speculation is it could be a combination of a little bit of creative accounting, probably still legal, but kind of at the edge. And there could be again, this is speculation, a big donor that for some reason is wanting to throw money at a dying congregation. And so the question is, what strings are attached? Why would you do this? And that's the real thing. So the first thing to do that I would hope would happen is that first the elders need to know who is in control of the books and why isn't this information being released to the elders? It doesn't have to go to the general congregation, but if the elders don't even know, this is a really bad situation where you could have maybe as little as 3 individuals that are controlling the finances and with not that much accountability. And there could be backroom deals and strings attached that we don't know.
Well, and the reality is, and again, that's kind of a supposition. You're not sure. It's just kind of conjecture a little bit, but let me put that into another setting. I have seen situations where there were a couple of people in a church who were the primary funders of it, even though there wasn't a formal strings attached. But they use that for control, even though it's a much smaller congregation than McLean. But if something happens and they pull out, they leave, and your budget is made up of only a couple of key funders, then that's a huge, huge deal. I mean, there's no way the church can survive that kind of a thing. So, and that's, yeah, I'm not a good math person, but I've looked at lots of budgets in the millions of dollars, and I just, it's hard to imagine that you've seen the kind of declining in attendance, physical attendance there that's being reported, and that your finances have remained at a steady level. It's concerning.
Exactly. So let's even take the most, generous scenario where someone was not putting strings attached. They were just generous.
Mm-hmm.
How long can someone generous like that keep throwing money at a church that is failing, that's obviously mismanaged, and say, there are probably better places I could donate my money? So that's one thing. That is a big risk. I'm inclined to think that there hasn't been necessarily that much creative accounting, because we still see McLean relatively well maintained, and the staff positions, there's not been a reduction in force. But I don't know how long this is sustainable. So as far as me personally, it's like, the elders may be, in my feeling, in my view, being very harsh to me, and it makes me miserable. But I think the leadership at McLean I would not want to trade places with where they are, with the condition of the ship, so to speak, that they're having to manage. As I said, when I went to another congregation the last 2 weeks, I was so happy. I said, I don't have these headaches. I could just focus on the Lord and just enjoy being there in the sanctuary, worshiping him and thinking about him and meditating. And it's like, I haven't had this feeling in a really long time, for months. And it's something that I miss now. I told the Lord, I said, I'll serve you.
That's what the divisiveness, that's what division, that's what conflict does, is it removes that ability for the congregation. I mean, I worked with lots of churches that have had conflict over the years, and the sheer getting ready to go to church in the morning, you're putting on your clothes, you're buttoning up your shirt, and the whole time you're dreading. Every button is like, oh, what's going to happen this morning? Oh, I hope nothing happens. Oh, I mean, that's just a terrible, terrible feeling. And it's like you're going and you're climbing aboard the Titanic that has already hit the iceberg. And not only is it hit the iceberg and starting to go down, you realize that all the anchors were already, in the water, and they were already causing a drag, and there were all these other issues. And shifting the chairs around is not going to solve the problem.
Exactly.
It's not going to solve the problem.
Speaking of which, you saw where I talked about they were shifting kind of the attendance in the Spanish congregation. They were shifting chairs of sort just to pack the English speaking sanctuary. It just, it looks like they were trying to hide the obvious loss in church attendance. And they're going through desperate measures. That will be in, perhaps one of the videos you link where I discussed that. It was just, it looked really bad.
Sal, you took a photograph outside of the Smith Center, which is one of the small sanctuaries there at McLean Bible Church. I want you to tell us what we're looking at. Let's put that up on the screen. Now, you tell us what we're looking at, because the sign is very odd when I saw that. So you tell us what we're looking at.
Okay, so I did put a white rectangle to conceal people's faces. I do want to, as best as I can, protect their privacy.
Sure.
So this is one of our quote unquote small sanctuaries, which seats 1,000 people. Okay. And in front, people are just milling around because they've been told that this small sanctuary was closed. You can also see the sign that says overflow seating. Overflow seating. And as I said, this really, I said, I better take a picture of this because this is ridiculous. Anyone who's been here the last few weeks knows we're not going to be overflowing. We can't even fill out 40% of the main sanctuary. So if we can go now to the second diagram, which will try to illustrate the relationship between the small sanctuary.
Yeah, tell us
what
what
on
we're
the
looking
left
at there. Okay,
yes.
yeah, the picture of the small sanctuary is up there in the corner, right?
Right. That's a small, quote unquote, small sanctuary. It seats about 1,000.
Okay.
And that's where we have the Spanish speaking service. So people come there who speak almost, who speak Spanish. Probably they don't speak enough English that they could actually hear their service in English.
First, second generation Hispanic. Sure, absolutely.
Exactly. So what had happened that Sunday is I saw these signs that said overflow seating, and just by providence, I started asking, people approached me and told me what was going on. And then they said that they were told that they had to shut this, they had to cancel the Spanish service so that they could use that sanctuary as overflow. In case the English speaking, the main sanctuary, which seats 2,700 people, in case that overflowed, it would have to go, they would use this Smith Center, the small 1,000 seat sanctuary, to handle the overflow. But the peculiar thing about this is not only did we know that there's not going to be an overflow situation. The peculiar thing is they told the Spanish speaking congregation, they said, well, because the main sanctuary is expected to be overflowing, you have to go there now, which makes,
really?
Yeah, you have to go there now and be a part of the English service. And there's not going to be any translator there, which look really, that totally makes no sense. So it's like, you're already told that we expect it to overflow. So just go where we expect it to overflow. And that was the pretense to say we're shutting down. We're basically canceling the Spanish service that's happening in the small sanctuary called the Smith Center. And so this was, after saying, what's kind of my disturbing behavior, I was photographing these sort of things and also getting witness testimony of what was going on. So what this looks like to me, and everyone else who's thought about this, all of them have said, it looks like they're trying to do window dressing, that the leadership is not liking the image that this is conveying, that the church is losing numbers, which means it could be dying.
That was kind of my question. And the word perception is what comes into my head. That is all about perception. Obviously, if you're trying to move all the Hispanics into the main sanctuary and the way it looks fuller, even though it wasn't full. But who are they trying to impress? I mean, the people within the church, you folks, I mean, most of you already know that the attendance is down. You've been there, you've looked at it, you've seen. So they're not trying to deceive you, I would assume, into thinking that it's fuller than it is. Who are they trying to convince?
That's a good question. And we talked backstage and offered our speculation, but it just now occurred to me that McLean, that campus used to have 5 services. 5.
Wow.
And it's gone down to 2. And even those 2 are not well attended. But one thing I realized, if you only go to one service, you might not know that the church is dying. You might just extrapolate your experience in that service to say, oh, the church is healthy, the sanctuary is relatively full. So at least for new attenders or recent attenders, that might work on them. The other thing is they pick one of the services, the 9 a.m. or 11, I don't know actually which, to broadcast as part of their online outreach. So when they have a recording, or if it's live, you'll sometimes have the camera pan to certain parts of the congregation. And so that might be part of it too. The other thing is, we speculated that there could be big donors that are getting discouraged to be donating to a dying church. If not big donors, just donors in general.
Yeah.
This
now,
could be very
has
disturbing.
this continued every week that you're aware of? I mean, was that a one-time thing, or is that something that's happened ongoing? They're continuing to.
That happened only on the 19th that I'm aware of, but it looked really suspicious.
Of September?
Of September, when there was a big baptism kickoff. There was one, I think, SBC wide on the 12th, but then the 19th was a big kickoff. And I think the leadership was hoping that their kind of reboot on the 12th would start to be so effective and we'd start bringing in more people, and it didn't happen. So that is a big question mark. Why go through these lengths? And even at that, they might have only been adding a couple hundred to, like, say, the 11 a.m. service,
right,
which had maybe, say, 800, and you'll increase it a little bit. But the sanctuary, I was there in the main sanctuary on the 19th, and they weren't even up to 1,000 to a sanctuary that could hold 2,700. So it still looked, this was like still a very desperate measure to do all this window dressing. And so I don't know who they're trying to impress, or, maybe they don't want reporters getting a little curious, because there are a lot of news organizations that like to, they like to highlight scandals in the church. If they get wind of this, well,
that's why I ask if it's something that continue to do or not. But if that was kind of a big kickoff Sunday, there may have been, a big advertising push, a special push that many of you were not aware of as far as members. It may have been to, non-member, just out in the media of some sort. And so the anticipation was, hey, if we have a big influx of guests who come to visit today, it'll appear like there are a lot more people here than what there are. It's just odd.
Yeah.
It's just
come
a
to
weird,
think of it. Yeah.
It's just a weird photograph that you got with the sign sitting there, when you know that even canceling that service, putting up, there's not going to be enough for overflow. It's like they pulled out a sign that they used at one time in the past and just said, we're going to stick this on a tripod. I don't know. It just looks strange.
Exactly. and who knows, maybe they anticipated someone of importance there that Sunday, or there was going to be a reporter. We don't know. But
well, and you would think
yeah.
if there was a big push where they were anticipating overflow, that you probably would have had some communication to the congregation. I mean, I know in the past, when we've had like big high attendance days or something, we frequently for weeks in advance would say, folks, now we want you to park and farther away from the front doors for guests to be able to get in, and or maybe off property, park up there in some businesses and walk your way in. Or we even had one situation I know when I was in a church in Texas, we actually paid some shuttle drivers. We had people park a couple of miles away in a parking lot that we got permission, and we shuttled our members back and forth so that there would be plenty of parking for guests right there. But I mean, it was always something we let our congregation know in advance. It wasn't secretive. So this just looks secretive. I don't know. It's mysterious.
It's mysterious, but I think the bottom line is the leadership, I think, knows what the score is, and they're sensitive to other people pointing it out that the church is dying from an attendance standpoint. I mean, we went from an average of about 13,500. Now we're down to maybe 3,200 brick and mortar. That is carnage.
Right. Well,
And
that's not, I mean, you may attribute a little bit of that to the virus, but boy, that's not all from the virus. It's the social justice emphasis. It's the wokeness. It's a bunch of other stuff probably combined.
And it's associated, it's unfortunately associated with the tenure of David Platt. It's right, so clear on the graph. And I think that's a real sore point. He was, God bless him, saying we need to spread the gospel to Washington, D.C. And he was citing the passages in Acts one Sunday where 3,000 were converted in one day, and he had visions. He's trying to convey that vision to the congregation. That's a very noble thing.
Yeah.
When that church is talking like that and then planting anywhere from 37 to 50 SBC churches.
Right. Yeah.
It just doesn't look good that you can't even handle your own house, and yet you're making plans to plant even more churches. It's like,
right,
where's the sensibility here? And so I think even on, if we don't know who they're trying to impress, it's almost like, well, maybe we just, we're kind of sensitive about how we've not done as good a job as we hoped. And right. And we're trying to put a little makeup on it at this point. I don't know.
Well, but, why does that need to be a secret? I mean, that would be my question. Why does that need to be a secret?
And I need to convey something that as I was gathering evidence, and there was that congregational meeting that was supposed to happen on September 29th, and it ended up being online and not really a congregational meeting.
Right.
The chairman of the board said, I hope you're as excited and energized as I am about where we are and where we're headed. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, seriously?
And yeah. I got to tell you, I looked at the archives. I said, this sounds eerily familiar to a Baptist preacher's son named Ken Lay, who was the chairman of Enron Corporation.
Oh.
And he announced just before that company just went totally bankrupt and the stock price went to zero. So this is August. The stock price went to zero, like say November and December.
Yeah.
And it still looked like they had half a chance. And he said, I'm excited about where we are and where we're going to be in the next few years. It sounded eerily familiar to Chairman Cooper saying the same thing. And the funny thing is that it was the SBC president who came to the defense of Ken Lay and said, he's a great guy. And I'm just like, what's the Baptist SBC president? Why is he coming to the defense of an Enron chairman? And I just thought it was just funny.
It didn't fare very well. That didn't turn out very well. Well, and I would really want to hope and pray and encourage our folks to hope and pray. That's not what's happening and ends up happening at McLean. But oh my soul, just a strange kind of a thing. And again, perceptions speak really loud. And I don't know why something like that needs to be kept a secret at that point. So just another in the saga of things that are happening right now at McLean Bible Church there in the Washington, D.C. area. Well, Sal, I want you to come back and talk to me again when you've been arrested and they've carted you off to jail, and and the church has filed their charges against you. Man, what a mess. Obviously, we hope none of that actually happens to you, but it's just sad to see all the things that have happened that are going on, right now there at the church. I pray that you and others are able to proceed with wisdom, with the knowledge of what you're doing to try to work forward. I would say this as a point of encouragement. The body of Christ is the body of Christ. It's the bride of Christ, and Jesus, he's going to take care of the bride. And it doesn't maybe appear that way at this point, but he's in charge, and he's going to take care of things without any doubt. At that point, we just pray for your safety, and take care of you and the others that are involved in all of this as well. So thank you again for joining me today, Sal. Any closing word?
Well, some people have been kidding me that I could have an opportunity to start a prison ministry. Actually, no, I don't. I definitely don't feel the Lord calling me there. And I'm comforted that the church is ultimately God's people, and the institutions are just kind of just the way we may congregate together, but ultimately it is the bride of Christ and his people. So I'm confident this will pass. My goal is I hope all of us will learn some lessons from this experience, to have the right safeguards in so that something like this doesn't happen again. Or if it does, at least, maybe it doesn't happen quite so frequently. Yeah. And that's really what, I'm hoping to do by being able to come on shows and talk about it. Maybe we can collect a body of knowledge. And it's also been great hanging around you and learning your stories, and it's giving me insights into people and organizations. So I'm trusting the Lord that, all things work for the good, and there will be good things that will come out of this.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I've been blessed to meet you in this process. See,
that's right.
For example, I got to meet your fellow pastors. So yeah. Amen.
Absolutely. Well, we've been glad to engage with you and try to keep up with what's going on. So, well, with all that, we're going to call it quits, and keep us updated. If there are other updates and things that happen, we'd like to stay alert to those things and be able to keep those who watch our videos here alert to that as well. So thanks again, Sal, for joining us.
Thank you. Take care.